Welcome to Snail Story, where we believe healing begins with being truly seen. How are you today? Is the sky where you are blue or gently gray, like the kind that makes you pause and breathe a little slower? In today's story, we meet Lorena, woman who spent 3 years planning the perfect family vacation only to be told she wasn't invited. But instead of breaking, she chose something radical: to give love where it would be returned, not with obligation, but with presence. What follows is a journey of quiet strength, unexpected sisterhood, and the kind of healing that doesn't need blood to feel like family. If you believe love is something we grow into through choices, not just ties, this story is for you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share Snail Story, where we take the slow path to what matters most. Lorraine Carter gently set down the last zippered bag on the kitchen counter, her palms still slightly sticky from the small whale-shaped stickers that read, "Love from Grandma." She smiled at the 6 little bags, each one filled with sunscreen, swim goggles, and a starfish kachina, small gift for each of her grandchildren for the special summer trip ahead. This wasn't just any vacation. It was a trip she had spent nearly 3 years preparing for Perry. Not because booking rooms or buying tickets took that long, but because saving up did. It started with spare change in a glass jar behind the oatmeal tin, then tutoring 4th graders in math at night, selling old furniture at discount prices on Facebook Marketplace, even skipping her beloved weekly jasmine tea to save a little more. All for one dream: to take her daughter Elise, son-in-law Brian, their 3 kids, and even Brian's parents on a week-long getaway to the coast of Maine, where an old lighthouse stood. White cottages lined the beach, and the waves whispered through the night. It was also the place she once promised her late husband, Walter, they'd one day return to with the whole family, to share its beauty with the people they loved. Her old laptop gave a soft ding as Lorraine opened it. She clicked on the folder named Seaside Birthday 60, the code name for her carefully planned vacation. Plane tickets booked, villa paid, airport shuttle, seafood dinner, lavender garden tickets for Brian's mom, every detail planned with care. She had even ordered custom t-shirts that read, "The Carters and the Briggs, Summer 2025 Family is a Lighthouse." Lorraine wasn't just the organizer. She was the dreamer, the one who hoped this trip might mend the growing distance, the silent gaps between her and Elise, the daughter who once hugged her tightly every night out of fear of ghosts, who once wrote in her diary, "Mom is the only one who truly understands me." Now, Elise barely called. Most family gatherings happened at Brian's mother's house, and Lorraine was invited only after everything had been arranged. But Lorraine didn't blame anyone. She believed that love should be given first. And this time, she was placing all that love into this trip as a final bridge. The clock on the wall struck 11 p.m. She was tidying up the printed maps of the villa area when her phone buzzed. A message from Brian. "Elise thinks this vacation should be just for our immediate family. Thanks for your financial help." Lorraine froze. She read the message again, then a 3rd time. Her eyes stayed wide open, but her mind could no longer process the words. Just one line. "No, I'm sorry. No, we know this might hurt, but no, we'll make it up to you some other way." Just a plain, clear confirmation that she did not belong on the trip. Even though she had paid for everything, the phone lit up once more. "Don't take it personally, Mom. It's just simpler this way." Lorraine didn't reply. She placed the phone face down on the table. The kitchen remained softly lit by the warm glow of the under-cabinet lights. The tablecloth, printed with seashells and freshly ironed just the day before, still carried the scent of fabric spray. She reached up to remove her reading glasses, gently resting them on the edge of a plate. Then she looked around the kitchen, the same kitchen where she and Walter used to cook dinner every summer evening, where he used to joke, "Tonight's catch, fish straight from the frozen aisle at Costco." They would sit on the bar stools and plan their future, a future that now only she remained to fulfill. She didn't cry. She only felt hollow, as if someone had just erased her from a picture she'd spent 3 years painting. And in that moment, Lorraine understood. Love may be unconditional, but presence should never be taken for granted. Lorraine was still sitting there at the same table where she had once labeled every tube of sunscreen, folded each sea turtle printed hand towel for the grandkids. But now, on the table lay a phone face down, containing just 2 short messages, brutal in their calmness. Elise thinks this vacation should be just for our immediate family. Don't take it personally, Mom. It's just simpler this way. Not personal. Lorraine couldn't help but feel it was entirely personal. She placed a hand over her chest where a shapeless ache had started to bloom. It wasn't anger, not quite sadness either, but something harder to define, like being quietly pushed out of a door she once believed she held the key to. And she had felt this before. Not just this time. Every time Elise said, "You don't need to bring anything, Mom, for holiday dinners," and Lorraine would show up as the only one empty-handed. Every time family photos were posted online without her, worse. She was neatly cropped out. Every time Brian addressed her as Mrs. Lorraine instead of Mom, even though he had once called her that in the early years of their marriage. And now they didn't want her on the trip, the very trip she had dreamed of, worked for, and saved every penny toward for 3 years. Lorraine stood, moving slowly. To the kitchen cabinet where she kept the old glass jar taped to the front was a tiny handwritten note, Seaside. 60-hour memory. Walter had never known about the jar. It was the last secret she'd kept since he passed something private, quiet and sacred. She had put in $5 after skipping new house slippers, $10 when she canceled her favorite movie subscription on a freezing winter night. She threw in $12 after piling on extra blankets. To save on heating. Every dollar was a dream. Every dollar was a promise. Lorraine returned to the dining table, looking at the small blue bag for her youngest grandchild. Charlie's name had been written by hand in gold marker. She took out the dolphin-shaped keychain and gently ran her thumb over the engraved words. "Grandma loves you." She wasn't sure if she still was Grandma. In their eyes, the phone buzzed again. Not a call, just an email alert. Subject: Briggs family final travel itinerary. She opened it, not expecting much, but still hoping for something. Anything. 8 names. Elise, Brian, the 3 kids. Brian's parents, Brian's sister, her sister's boyfriend, Lorraine, wasn't listed. It wasn't an oversight. It wasn't FORGET, FUL, and ESS. It was deliberate exclusion. She zoomed in on the PDF, scanned every line, every schedule, the guest list at the villa. Flight bookings, tour plans, private chef dinners, lavender field visit. All of it charged to Lorraine's credit card. She had paid, but she wasn't going. There was no more confusion, no more fog. Only one thing remained: clarity. Lorraine set the phone down and walked slowly to the small office beside the fireplace. She turned on the desk lamp and opened her laptop. The screen lit up gently, slowly, like her own breath. A file labeled Seaside Fund appeared at the top. Inside, every transaction, payment confirmation, tour itinerary. At the bottom, primary account holder, Lorraine Carter. Authorized users, none. She logged into her online banking. Available balance, $18,542.55. Status: active linked cards, 5 including villa. Airline, car rental, tour company, catering services. Every automatic transaction pulled from one source, her. She moved the cursor to the option. Pause all transactions. A small note popped up. Enable pause mode to stop all new charges from this account All linked cards will be deactivated. She didn't click it yet, not out of hesitation, but because there was something else she wanted to do. First right, she opened a blank document at the top. She typed in bold list of people who were never invited anywhere. The first name she wrote was Carol Jameson, former school friend abandoned by her son after surgery. Then Beverly Lynn, who lived alone with her brother, suffering from Alzheimer's, and hadn't taken a Gway's vacation in 8 years. Nora Sims called. Too much by her family because she asked about the past. Frances Delaney. Die Tran each name, a story. Each story. A cut that had touched Lorraine's life, reminding her that loneliness didn't come from silence, but from being treated as if you didn't exist. When she finished the list, she returned to the bank screen. This time without pause. She clicked Confirm. Account paused. All cards deactivated. No transaction could proceed without her approval. One click, one. Quiet liberation. 8:15 a.m. Lorraine sat in the kitchen as the wooden wall clock chimed 3 short notes. A cup of peppermint tea warmed her hands. The window was cracked open, letting in the crisp morning breeze enough to make her shiver. But she didn't close. The cold was easier to bear than the silence she'd received over the past 2 days. She glanced at her phone screen on the table. No new messages. Still no one called, no questions. Not a hint of hesitation, just her, the one who had booked the rooms, paid for everything, prepared every detail, turned into an outsider. She had thought maybe Elise would feel a twinge of guilt, maybe send some kind of message, even a reluctant one. But no, not even a thanks for covering the last payment. Lorraine was no longer disappointed. She had passed that emotion the night before, the moment she pressed pause on all transactions from the Seaside Fund account. Now she just felt clarity. The phone rang. Caller ID, Brian. She didn't answer. A minute later, message arrived. Mom, can you check the account for us? We're trying to check in, but the card's being declined. Is there some error? Lorraine didn't reply. She picked up a buttered raisin scone, broke off a small piece, and chewed slowly. 2 minutes passed. Another message. Mom, none of the services are going through. Resort, car, even the tour tickets. The system says it can't verify the payment source. Can you please check? She set the pastry down, looked out at the garden where Walter's old rocking chair still sat under the porch. Bathed in a thin veil of sunlight, she imagined him there, reading the paper, smiling. It was time. Love. The phone vibrated again. And again. 5 missed calls within 10 minutes. Then a voicemail. Brian's voice, still trying to stay calm. Mom, looks like there really is a problem. Maybe someone accessed the account. I know you're the main holder, but we need your confirmation to settle this with the front desk. No apology, no R. You okay? Just fix it. Lorraine placed her teacup down, wiped her hands with a napkin, and muted the phone. She didn't need to hear more because she finally understood. Her role in this story, not a mother, not a companion, just a source of funds. But now, the bank was closed. 8:48 a.m. An email appeared on her laptop. Subject, booking. Cancellation request, Villa Atlantic Edge, confirmed Dear Mrs. Lorraine Carter. Per account holder's request, all services related to Villa Atlantic Edge have been canceled. All deposits and supplementary service charges will be refunded, according to policy, within 3 business days. Thank you for using our service. We hope to accompany you on future journeys. Lorraine read the email 3 times, then closed her eyes. For a moment, there was no satisfaction, no vengeance, only release. 10:02 a.m. Another message. Brian's tone now laced with urgency. Mom, if this is because of the message earlier, we might have been wrong. Elise is really stressed out. Can you call me, please? Lorraine slid the phone into a drawer. then walked slowly to the small dining table, the one where she had once dreamed of placing Walter's photo in the center. To light a candle together as a family during their first dinner at the villa. That photo still rested in its walnut frame, still wrapped carefully in bubble wrap, and now would be taken somewhere else. Not for mourning, but for moving forward. That afternoon, Lorraine opened her notebook. Once more, looked at the list. Carol Jamieson, Beverly Lynn, Nora Sims, Frances Delaney, Di Tran. She added a new heading, The Women Who Remember. She marked each name with a check, then wrote a short note next to each. Has never had a photo taken on the beach. No vacation in 8 years. Called annoying for bringing up the past. No birthday wishes for 4 years straight. Once brought me cake when I broke my leg. Lorraine wasn't just making a list, she was rewriting a journey for those who had never been invited. Evening settled in. Golden light slipped through the white foil curtains, casting a soft, blurred glow across the pale wooden floor, gentle, quiet. Like Lorraine's heart now. She remained at her familiar kitchen corner, hands wrapped around a warm cup of tea. The phone lay muted beside her. Its screen lit up over and over Brian. Elise, Brian's mother. Messages, calls, video calls, voicemails, on repeat. But Lorraine didn't pick up. She wasn't punishing anyone. She was simply protecting. What remained inside her the part that still believed family was where you belonged. Not something you could be excluded from without explanation. The voicemails kept stacking up. Mom, I don't understand why you're doing this. You know, we've got 3 kids. Please think about it. This is our family vacation, right? Elise is really upset. Mom, she didn't mean to leave you out. You know how she is. She reorganizes everything. Maybe she was wrong, but doing this sits too much. Lorraine looked out the window, where a line of white daisies swayed gently. In the breeze, it was the kind of afternoon made for walks, for soft conversations, for someone to ask, "Are you okay, Mom?" But no one asked. Every sentence they spoke started with Mom and ended with, "Please fix this." 5:30 p.m. A message from Elise finally arrived. Not an apology, not concern, just this. "Mom, we need a bit of money urgently. Can you temporarily unpause the account? We'll talk later. It's chaotic right now. I know you're mad, but you're still my mom, right?" Lorraine turned the phone face down, and in her mind, it wasn't Elise's voice she heard, but Walter's. From when he was still alive, you know? Sometimes people aren't cruel because they're bad, they just assume you'll always forgive them. 6:15 p.m. She made her first phone call of the day, but not to Elise, to Carol Jamieson. On the other end, Carol's voice was hoarse from crying, "Lorraine, oh my God, how long has it been? Are you all right?" Lorraine smiled softly. "I'm okay. I'm organizing a small getaway. Maine, a week. By the sea. The villa has a private kitchen. I'd love for you to come with me." Silence. Then a quiet sob. "I haven't traveled anywhere since my husband passed. Why would you think of me?" Lorraine's voice was barely above a whisper. "Because I know what it feels like to be forgotten." 6:40 p.m. Next call. Nora. Sims, the frail old friend who still journaled in purple ink. The beach? I've never even seen the ocean. Lorraine smiled. Then it's time. 7:15 p.m. 5 calls in total. 5 invitations. 5 moments of stunned silence followed by overwhelmed joy. No one asked, "Who's paying?" No one asked, "What should I bring?" They only asked, "Really? Are you serious? You're choosing me?" And Lorraine had just one answer. "Yes, because you deserve to see the sun rise over the sea just like anyone else." 8:00 p.m. as the sun dipped. Below the horizon, Lorraine reopened her laptop and logged back into the villa booking site. Each previous transaction appeared as refund pending. She clicked into new reservation, same location, same dates. But this time, under guest names, she typed Carol Jameson Beverly, Lenora Sims Francis Delaney Ditran Lauren Carter 1. Villa 46.6 beds, 1 large dining table, and no one left. Behind, Lorraine printed the new confirmation, slipped it into an envelope, then opened the drawer and took out Walter's photo frame. She placed it next to her tea and whispered, "Love. There won't be children calling me Grandma this year, but there will be laughter, and there will be mean not just giving, but being chosen to stay." The next morning, Lorraine woke up earlier than usual. She didn't need to. No one was waiting to meet her. No one expected her to prepare breakfast like they used to in years past. And yet, her body moved to its own rhythm of anticipation, of quiet excitement, of something about to begin in the kitchen. She opened the cupboard and reached for the old glass jar, the dream jar where she had once kept the first coins for a family vacation that no longer belonged to the family. She poured the coins into her palm, then placed them back into the jar, one by one this time, for a new kind of dream, one not tied to obligation, one that carried no hope for approval, just freedom and choice. Her laptop screen lit up. A message from Carol appeared. "Just checked my blood pressure. All good. But I still can't believe it's Ham. I really going on vacation." Lorraine typed back, and not to care for anyone, just to live, truly live. 4 days later, Eugene Airport, 6 women, each with a worn suitcase, stood quietly in front of the departure gate. Their coats were neutral colored, their scarves tied imperfectly, their eyes wide with a mix of wonder and disbelief, like children on their first field trip. Except these women were not children, and it had been far too long since anyone had asked them if they wanted to go anywhere. Carol held Loren's hand tightly as the airport agent checked their passports. "I forgot what it felt like to go somewhere just for me. How long has it been?" "Too long," Lorraine replied. "But today, we begin again." Upon arrival in Maine, the shuttle carried them from the airport to a villa nestled into a hillside, a white wooden house with wide windows facing the sea, string lights dangling from the porch, and a soft, grassy yard where the waves sounded like someone's steady, calming breath. Lorraine opened the front door first and took a deep breath. No one warned her. Watch the rug. No one double-checked the itinerary. No one said, "You don't need to do that, Mom." There were only quiet footsteps, genuine exclamations of awe, and a peace Lorraine had never known before, not even when she had been with family. The first evening on the large dining table where Lorraine once imagined placing Walter's photo, so the family could honor him, stood the same walnut frame, but this time sat among those who understood what it meant to lose someone. No one asked, "Who's this?" No one said, "Can we move it until after dinner?" No one dismissed her grief. Carol raised her glass of white wine and said softly, "To those we've loved and to ourselves, for still standing." And then came the laughter. Francisca, woman who hadn't traveled since her husband passed, burst into laughter as she told the story of almost taking the wrong suitcase at the airport because it was red. "And I liked the color." Nora read aloud from her purple ink journal, "I should have cried today, but I chose to go to the beach instead." Di, the quietest of them all, pulled a small bag of cookies from her purse. "I baked these to eat alone, but today don't need to eat alone anymore." Lorraine looked around the table. She didn't see Elise. She didn't see Brian. There were no little voices calling Grandma mid-meal. But she saw eyes that didn't look at her as if she existed to serve, to sacrifice, or to disappear. They looked at her as someone with a name, with a seat at the table, with worth, and to Lorraine that was more powerful than any belated apology. Late that night, Lorraine stepped onto the porch, though. Sea breeze swept through her silver hair. She held a lavender candle in her hand, Walter's favorite color. She had always planned to light it for him on their first night at the villa as promised. And now, that promise would still be kept, without Elise beside her, without needing permission to remember, only surrounded by those who knew what loneliness felt like, knew how to listen. The next morning, the seaside villa woke under a soft, buttery light. The ocean breeze, tinged with salt and the scent of white daisies, slipped through the wide-open windows, scattering a few notes Nora had quietly written the night before. Wishing you a morning where no one is forgotten. Lorraine stepped into the kitchen, where Di had already brewed tea using a delicate blue porcelain set she'd brought from home because tea should be sipped from a proper cup. Carol wore an apron, baking brown bread from scratch. Beverly adjusted the cushions on the armchairs, quietly humming along with the crackling jazz playing from the old radio. No one said, "Mom, just sit, we've got this." No one asked, "Did you bring snacks for the kids?" No one expected Lorraine to sacrifice. Instead, they shared after breakfast on the shore. Frances brought a photo of her late husband, a soldier, who, she said, never truly came back from the war. "He always wanted to take me to the beach," she murmured, eyes tracing the tide. "But I never dared go without him." "And now?" Lorraine asked gently. Frances gave a soft smile. "Maybe he's watching from that wave over there." She picked up a smooth stone and wrote on it, "We are still alive and still worthy of joy." That afternoon, in the kitchen around the table, Di, who rarely smiled, shared how the first time she'd ever been given flowers was by a former student. 30 years after her teaching career began, "No one in my family ever gave me flowers," she said. "They said it was pointless." "What about now?" Carol asked, placing a wildflower on the table. Di laughed a full, open laugh for the first time. "Now I can pick flowers for myself." The third night dinner under string lights, Lorraine placed a new photo frame in the center of the table. It held a picture freshly printed from her pocket camera. 6 women, hair tousled by the sea breeze, laughing wildly. No coordinated outfits, no poses, just one shared truth. They were fully themselves. Frances raised her glass, voice slightly shaking. "I once thought I'd go through life and never be called a companion. But now I have." On the villa balcony, later that night, Lorraine opened an email. Subject: "Just want to clear the air from Elise Briggs' mom. We're back. The vacation wasn't what we hoped. A lot went wrong. Maybe we didn't handle things well, Brian says. You're mad because you felt left out, but honestly, you were still part of it, even if you didn't come. We're having financial issues now. Would you consider refunding some of the deposit we sent you? Even just a portion. You're still mom. You understand, Elise?" Lorraine read, slowly, line by line, word by word. There was no apology, no true acknowledgement, just another soft-edged request, dressed up in the language of love. "You're still mom." As if being a mother meant a lifetime obligation, as if she never had the right to ask, "And who chooses to be my child?" Lorraine closed the laptop back in the kitchen. Carol was learning hula steps from Di's clumsy hands, but eyes sparkling with joy. Nora sat nearby, writing a postcard to herself. She scribbled her address on the back. Recipient: the woman who's never received a letter. Lorraine looked around and smiled. They weren't the family she was born into, but they were the family who chose each other, not because they needed help, but because they needed to be present. That night, they lit a candle one by one. Each woman spoke. "I see you. You are not a burden. You are allowed to rest. You don't have to earn love. You are not invisible. You have the right to say no." Finally, Lorraine lit a lavender candle for Walter, and for herself, and for herself, and whispered, "For the first time in a long time, I'm not trying to be loved. I'm just letting myself live." The next morning, Lorraine woke up later than usual. Not because she was tired, but because she no longer had to rise early for someone else not to cook. Breakfast for a picky son-in-law. Not to brew coffee to Elise's exact preference, not to prepare. Food for 3 grandchildren only to hear complaints that it was too sweet or too heavy. She simply slept in, then rose. Made herself toast with blueberry jam, the one she had loved since she was a young girl, without asking, would anyone else like some? 10 a.m. A payment notification arrived. Refund completed. Full reimbursement. For the Villa Shuttle whale watching tour. Private chef processed back to the original account. A brief note appeared. Refund issued per request of primary account holder, Lorraine Carter. She stared at that line for a long time, not because of the money, but because, for the first time, on this entire journey, everything was under her name. Not for convenience, not because no one else wanted to claim it, but because she had built this from the start, and now she was the one rebirthing it. Later that afternoon, a message from Elise's mom. I know you might still be upset, but things are really messy right now. We maxed out the credit cards trying to rebook. Please, I'm begging you, could you return part of the deposit I sent from the joint account? Just a portion. I promise we'll talk once I get home. I hope you understand, Elise. Lorraine set the phone down on the wooden table outside the porch, where she was sunbathing with Beverly, was gently arranging the seashells they'd gathered that morning. Another message. Beverly asked softly. Lorraine nodded, not bothering to reopen it. She poured more tea into her cup. She wants me to return money that was never hers to begin with. Beverly didn't ask anything further. She just reached over and placed a hand gently atop Lorraine's. People assume that because you once gave freely, you always will. Evening at the dinner table, Lorraine looked around. Carol was undoing her hair clip. Frances was sharing stories from her teaching days. Nora was laughing so hard she cried after accidentally mixing salt instead of sugar into the dessert. No one kept score. No one took control. No one judged. And for the first time in many years, Lorraine felt she didn't have to prove her worth, didn't have to list her sacrifices, didn't have to bow her head. That night, she opened the message again, not to reply, just to reread. Just a portion. I promise we'll talk when I get home. Just a portion. Lorraine half smiled. Something in it was both bitter and absurd. There were no questions about her well-being. No apology, no mom. We were wrong. Just a request for money, as if love were a contract, and she, the bank. The next morning, Lorraine wrote in her journal title, Things no one apologized for. But I forgave anyway, she wrote. No one needs to approve my right to rest. No. One has the authority to define family for me. I used to believe love meant always giving, a key. Now I know, love also means keeping what I deserve. I'm not just a mother when I pay. I'm a mother and a person, and that doesn't need confirmation. That evening, they sat together once more. Frances asked gently, if Elise apologized, really apologized, would you forgive her? Lorraine paused, then nodded. Forgiveness? Yes. But I won't return to that old role. I won't sit at a table where I have to bring my own chair. Di said softly, it's not that they didn't need you. They just assumed you wouldn't leave. Lorraine looked toward the candle flickering at the center of the table, and they were wrong. On Thursday afternoon at the seaside villa in Maine, the sky was painted in soft honey and peach. Waves lapped gently against the shore, as if the ocean itself was tiptoeing not to disturb the peace. Lorraine walked barefoot along the sand, letting the sea breeze play through her hair, a little ways off. Carol and Beverly were playing a game of Guess the Seashell, while Di lounged on a folding chair, eyes closed, clutching an open book as if holding on to the rhythm of peace itself. No. One said, hurry up. No one asked, what time's dinner? No one needed anything from Lorraine. She was no longer the organizer, no longer the bank, no longer the one responsible for anyone else's happiness. She was simply living fully, wholly and freely. That evening, a dinner in the garden laid a cloth over the wooden table beneath strands of warm yellow lights. Each woman brought a dish: Beverly's garlic toast, Carol's watermelon mint salad, Di's unexpectedly delicious pumpkin soup. Frances brought red wine, and Nora read aloud from her journal, her voice both trembling and grounded. I once believed my life would end in a room filled with the smell of antibiotics and wilted flowers. But today, I write this by the ocean scene named Remembered. Lorraine quietly took out a small linen-wrapped box. Inside was the final lavender candle, Walter's favorite color. It had once been meant for a family memorial dinner, but like the woman who carried it, it had been excluded. She said nothing, just placed the candle into a small iron holder at the center of the table. Next to Walter's photo, no one gave a nervous smile. No one looked away. They were quiet and present. Carol was the first to place a hand on her shoulder. "Would you like to light it now?" Lorraine nodded. The flame rose soft purple against a windless sky. Each woman held a small ribbon. Lorraine had prepared each with a handwritten message: "I have the right to rest. I am worthy of love, even when I do nothing. I am not invisible. I owe no one an apology for existing." Lorraine held the final ribbon. "I was once excluded on. Now I choose myself." She looked into the flickering purple flame and whispered, "Walter, you once told me if I was ever tired, find the place where the waves live. I found it, and this time I didn't come alone." Night fell. They walked to the shore, 6 women. No longer young, but each step was firm. No one recorded it. No one added hashtags. Only the sound of waves and a connection that needed no explanation. Frances pulled a slip of paper from her coat pocket and read aloud, "I used to be a shadow, but now I am the one standing between the candlelight and the sea, and I shine." The next morning, in the kitchen, a postcard arrived for Lorraine. Not from Elise, not from Brian. It was from Nora, sent from within the villa itself. "Dear Lorraine, thank you for remembering me when no one else did. I thought I'd leave this life never having received a letter. But you wrote to me, and because of that, I've never felt more alive." Lorraine folded the postcard and tucked it into her notebook, then turned to see her friends preparing breakfast. None of them were her family by blood, but they were living together like a real family, with eyes full of kindness, not obligation. Sunday morning at the seaside villa stirred gently with the clinking of dishes, the creak of window frames letting in light, sparse but warm laughter. Lorraine sat on the balcony, a soft wool shawl over her shoulders, a cup of tea still warm in her hands. Before her stretched the ocean, calm, blue, endless, like a quiet kind of gratitude that didn't need words. Today was the final day of the trip. No one rushed to pack. No one checked the airport countdown. No one sighed, "I'm so tired," or "When are we leaving?" 'Cause for the first time, being present was enough. Frances brought out a small wooden box. "I've held on to this for 30 years, she said, "because I had no one to give it to." Inside were old paper mementos, handwritten letters from her husband, a faded wedding photo, the first receipt they'd signed together. "I thought I'd die with these," Frances said with a teary smile. "But last night, walking under the moonlight with all of you, I realize memories aren't meant to be buried. They're meant to be shared." Nora picked up one of the letters and traced the creases gently. "A man who writes letters like this, loved deeply." Frances nodded. "But last night, I felt loved again. Not the romantic kind, the kind where your presence matters in. No one wants you to disappear." Then came a message from Elise, one that felt sincere. Mom, I've been thinking. I was wrong. Brian was wrong. We took your presence for granted, and only when you weren't. There did we see how deep that absence felt. We miss you. I'm sorry. I didn't say that sooner, if you're willing. When we're back home, I'd like to visit you. Not to talk about money, just to see you as you are. I hope you'll say yes, Elise. Lorraine read the message. Slowly, she didn't rush to believe, didn't rush to forgive, but she didn't shut the door either. She simply typed back 3 words. Let it sit. Their final dinner at the villa. 6 women, 1 photo at the center. They lit 6 candles, 1 for each woman, and each shared a single sentence. No speeches, no scripts, just, thank you for not calling me too sensitive. Thank you for letting me laugh without guilt. Thank you for asking, are you tired, instead of, are you done yet? Thank you for not making me retell my pain just to prove I've been hurt. Thank you for letting me sit at the table without needing a reason. Thank you for reminding me I never stopped being enough. After dinner, Lorraine walked to the shore alone. The sand was cooler than usual. The waves brushed against her legs like gentle hands. She walked until the water reached mid-calf. Then stood still. She didn't cry. She simply breathed in, deeply, and whispered, Walter? I thought this place was where I'd mend a family. But instead, it's where I realized family isn't where you beg to stay. It's where you're welcomed, exactly as you are. The next morning, they left the villa. There were no dramatic goodbyes, just tight hugs. Eyes that said, I'll remember this. Without promising when they'd meet again, Lorraine was the last to leave. She locked the door, still holding Walter's photo in her hands, then turned to look back one final time. No children's laughter. No one calling Mom. No one calling Grandma. And yet she felt full as a lifetime finally seen. 1 week after returning from Maine, Lorraine opened the wardrobe in her bedroom and pulled out her old suitcase. Not to pack for another trip, but simply to wipe it clean and put it away, like something that had been used rightly, at the right time, and for the right people. She placed Walter's photo on the bookshelf, beside the seashells her friends had gifted her. Each shell had a word written in black ink: seen, enough, still here, whole, free, home. She looked at them and smiled. None of those women shared her blood. None had ever called her Mom. But they had seen her in a way even her own daughter had never quite had the courage to do. That morning, the doorbell rang. Lorraine opened the door. Elise was standing there, no pastries, no flowers, no gifts, just a small backpack and eyes red from what must have been a long ride of crying. I didn't know if you'd want to see me. Elise said softly. Lorraine didn't speak. She simply opened the door wider. They sat together at the kitchen table, the same table that had once witnessed breakfasts full of quiet efforts. Mornings when Lorraine brewed coffee as a way to hold on to her place in the family. Elise looked around, as if truly seeing the house for the first time. Then whispered, I was wrong, I thought. I was being an adult by making my own decisions. But I grew up the wrong way. You gave not because you had nothing else to do, but because you loved. And I used that love like it was something you owed me. I'm sorry. Lorraine nodded slowly. She didn't say, I forgive you. She didn't say, it's okay now. She simply took Elise's hand, light as a breath. You're allowed to be wrong, but I'm not returning to my old role. Elise looked up, silent, then nodded. I understand. That afternoon, Lorraine visited the small church at the end of the street. In her hands was a thick envelope, a draft for a project she had named Retreat of the Remembered A, space where forgotten women were invited to rest, not because of who they were, but because they had once been left behind. She placed the folder in front of the pastor, who had known her for over 30 years. Lorraine, he said gently, I doubt you'll find funding for something like this. She smiled. I don't need funding. I have a personal fund. It's no longer a travel fund for others. It's a healing fund for those who once believed they didn't deserve a break. That evening, she reopened the notebook she had carried. To the CID first page still read, Seaside, 60-hour memory. She crossed out hour and, in red ink, rewrote, my memory, my choice. Beneath it, she added a single line. I wasn't left behind. I just stopped trying to be chosen. By people who never truly saw me. 1 week later, the first gathering of the Project Lorraine sat in a circle with 8 other women, many of whom had not left their town in over 20 years. Each woman held a warm cup of tea and a slip of paper with her name written on it. Lorraine began with a single sentence. You don't have to prove anything to deserve rest. And they all nodded. No tears, no applause. Just nods like a quiet confirmation. I am here. The final night of the first retreat, she stood before the sea. Again, alone but no longer lonely. In her hand was a seashell with a message inscribed, You didn't lose them. You found yourself. The ocean breeze slipped through her coat, soft as Walter's hand. She smiled, knelt down, and placed the shell into the sand. Then turned back toward the lights waiting for her, where the other women were laughing, living, and being truly seen. Thank you for staying until the very end of today's Snail story. Sometimes, healing doesn't come from the ones we waited for, but from the ones who simply showed up. Lorraine's journey reminds us that being loved isn't about being needed. It's about being seen, respected, and welcomed exactly as we are. You don't need to prove your worth. You don't need permission to rest, and you are never too late to come home to yourself. If this story touched something in you, let us know. Drop a comment. Tell us where you're listening from, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Snail Story, where love arrives slowly, but always truly. See you next time.